When you think about your prayer life, do you think that you pray bold prayers? In this video, we're going to be chatting about what is a bold prayer and how can we pray more boldly. Now personally, I love to read stories about people who have prayed boldly, who have dared to pray for big things and seen those prayers answered in different ways, sometimes not in the ways that they expected or wanted, but have seen some kind of answer to these bold prayers that they have been brave enough to pray. So what actually is a bold prayer? What does that even mean? Now I think this will look completely different for everybody. For some people, their normal prayer will be a really bold prayer to someone else. This is a very personal, very subjective thing. But I think bold prayers are often the kind of prayers that we avoid praying. The prayers that feel too scary to pray. The prayers that we don't really know how to put words to. The prayers that seem too big or impossible. The prayers that would push us outside of our comfort zone. The prayers that we're afraid either to get an answer to or that we're afraid that God won't answer. Or maybe the prayers that you don't think God will care about. And I think sometimes these will be prayers that we haven't even thought to pray about yet. It hasn't kind of crossed our mind to actually bring them before God because they are too scary or too intimidating, and we kind of push them to one side. But I want to encourage all of us to pray more boldly, to really think about those prayers and bring them before God, because the Bible tells us that God cares about everything, all of our prayers, the very smallest to the very biggest, the scary prayers and the very mundane prayers. So we can and we should bring them all before Him. So how do we go about praying these big prayers? Well, our first thing to think about is our language. What language are you using when you pray? If while you're praying you hear yourself saying words like just or only, or if you could just do this, or perhaps you could do this, or maybe, or those kind of words that are very vague and very kind of timid, think about why you are using those kind of words. And could you be more bold in your language? And I don't mean being demanding in our language and saying, do this, do this, do this, but actually just saying, God, I'm praying for this situation. I pray that you can do this in this situation. Being clear and precise and direct in how you're talking to God. The second thing that you could do is pray the big prayer. Now, I'm a big fan of breaking down prayers into smaller prayers and praying kind of step by step through a situation. Personally, I find this can be really helpful in kind of seeing answers to prayer more clearly and kind of keeping on going and just kind of having that motivation to keep on praying. But I also think it's really important that we do pray that big prayer as well. So if we're praying for someone to be healed from an illness that they have, for example, you could break it down and ask God for them to have a good day or a good doctor's appointment or for a treatment plan to be put in place and kind of do kind of step by step. And that can be really helpful and feel less intimidating. But I think it's also really important to pray the big prayer, to pray that God would heal that person from their illness and that they'll be completely healed. That is a big prayer that is intimidating a lot of the time. But I think it's important to kind of have that balance between the two and know that we can pray that big prayer. It's not too big for God to do, it's not impossible. There are people who have been miraculously healed of different illnesses, and we can pray for that thing. Not every prayer will be answered in the way that we want it to be, and we may not always see that miraculous healing. But I think it's still bold to pray that big prayer. The third thing that you can do is reflect on the prayers that scare you. Take some time and set it aside to just dedicate to thinking, what prayers am I not praying? What prayers are just too scary that I don't even want to bring them to God? What prayers am I not even thinking of praying about? And ask God to reveal some of those things to you. Pray about your prayers because God already knows those big prayers. He knows the prayers that you aren't praying because He knows your heart. So ask Him to help you see those and recognize those. Then think about, why is it that those prayers scare me? Why are they scary? And then pray about them anyway, and pray about the things that are scary about those prayers. Ask that God would take away the fear and that He would help you through that situation, whatever that looks like. I think a lot of the time, understanding why something feels so scary can help it feel a lot less scary. The fourth thing you could do is pray with someone else. Sometimes I think it can be really helpful to have someone else praying alongside us who may be slightly detached from that big, bold, scary prayer, who can help us and pray alongside us and pray with us. They can also help to keep us accountable, to make sure that we are continuing to pray those bold prayers and aren't kind of retreating away from it because it's too scary. This could be someone that you know in your church, it could be a friend or family member, it could be your spouse, it could be anybody that you trust with this situation or this bold prayer that you want to pray. They can help to keep you accountable, they can help you to kind of put words to the prayer that you want to pray. And they can even just kind of sit with you with that prayer so that you don't feel like you're praying it alone. Similarly to this, the fifth thing that you could do is ask someone else to pray these prayers over you. If you're still feeling like these prayers are just too scary, you're really struggling to pray for those things, you're struggling to pray that bit more boldly, then why not ask someone else to pray that prayer over you? It can be a lot easier to pray boldly when it's not directly impacting you and it isn't scary and emotional to you. If it's for someone else, I think we can all pray a lot more boldly. So as that first step, just ask someone else if they can pray boldly that prayer over you and over your situation. And then I think by knowing that someone else is praying that prayer, praying boldly over that situation, it can give you the confidence to pray that prayer too and kind of build up to that point of being able to pray more boldly. And another idea that you could try is using a prayer journal. Now I really love using a prayer journal. I have lots of videos on this channel about prayer journals, but I think this could be really helpful for praying more boldly because I think sometimes it's easier to just write something down rather than saying it out loud. But also then when it is written down, we can read it over and reflect on it, and it becomes more normal because we can see it right there in black and white. And I also think when we're writing in a prayer journal, we're far less likely to use words like just and maybe and perhaps and those kind of vague words we talked about earlier. I think we are more likely to be more direct and we can read back what we've written and realise, actually, yeah, that was a bit kind of fluffy and vague. I need to be more bold, and we can kind of see ourselves get more bold in the way that we're writing. But those are just a few different ideas that I hope will help you to pray more boldly in your prayer life. If you still think that you don't feel confident enough to pray these bold prayers, then I really recommend you check out our previous video about how to pray confidently. And I do think that praying boldly and praying confidently are two different things. So praying boldly is about what we pray about and how we pray those prayers, whereas praying confidently is about how we think about our prayers and the way in which we understand how God answers our prayers and how He listens to our prayers. So I do think there is a difference. But do let us know down in the comments, what bold prayers would you like to pray more? And what are the things that are stopping you from praying more boldly? But we hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, please do give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below to see more videos from me and Arnold. And as I said, if you do want to find out more about praying confidently, do check out this video right here. And we will see you very soon for a new video. Bye!